That was so gorgeous. I think I'll just go home now. Seriously, I'm, as you might have guessed, Reverend Dr. Susan Veronica Rack, and it's been a pleasure to be joining you here through this summer for 3 Sundays now. An honor and a pleasure for me. And so I'm awfully glad to be here today and glad that you are all here. So tomorrow is Labor Day, and it was first celebrated 142 years ago right here in New York City. The day before had been designated Labor Sunday and was dedicated to the spiritual and educational aspects of the labor movement, which was at that time, the slogan was 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, and 8 hours of what you will. Now Labor Day is more popularly celebrated as the unofficial end of summer and the occasion for lots of retail sales. Not much connection to the themes of work or spirituality. In our responsive reading this morning, Marge Piercy reminds us that the work of the world, our work really, is common as mud. Nothing spectacular or fancy, but necessary. And that persons have an aim or a yearning for work that is real, for our efforts and struggles to have some meaning. As minister and theologian Frederick Buechner advised, in our lives we are called to find that place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep hunger. That is our calling to meaningful endeavor that feeds our soul and brings us joy and healing, and can bring the world joy and healing. And then the reading from Tim Atkins invites us to consider that whatever work we are doing, whether it's a chosen artistic endeavor or an everyday task or our jobs, holds within it, perhaps unseen, gifts of transformation, creativity, and joy. Our work, whatever it is, offers us the opportunity to be creatively changed, even in small ways that can be very powerful. Now, continuing on with that pottery theme, if any of you have ever thrown a pot or watched the great pottery throwdown on television, you know what those experiences Atkins described in the reading are like. Now, many years ago, as a parent helper in an arts and crafts camp, I enjoyed my only experience in throwing a pot. The teacher made it look so easy. And there is a certain thrill to it all, once you've worked the clay over and over to get all the air out, and soaked it, but not too much. You put a lot of hope and expectation into each of those early steps. I just knew something great was going to come out of all of this. As I did all the preliminary work, I envisioned the bowl taking shape in my hands. Once your lump of clay is on the wheel, you have to find the proper speed. Otherwise, watery clay can fly everywhere, and you lose total control. You have to use the right amount of pressure and be consistent. Otherwise, your pot will be thicker in some spots than others. You have to get the balance right. And since I've already said I did this exactly once, you might guess how I fared with my clay. For every bowl or plate or cup or vase created, there are lumps of clay misshapen and discarded. Now, sometimes when a potter sees that, and they see that what they have thrown is not working, they can rework the clay into a new form, beginning again. The slap of the clay, the whir of the wheel, the potter's patient exacting gaze, the steady hand, over and over again. Isn't this in some way how we get and make our way through life? We begin our work and whatever that endeavor is, and if necessary, see when a correction is needed, and we need to not be afraid to try again. We allow ourselves to be reformed, changed, transformed. We allow ourselves to be fit for some purpose. It is in our nature to want to be of use, for our lives to have meaning. Now, many of us, we think of our work as employment or a job. We also want it to be the place where we find meaning, where we can prove our worth and others can judge our merit. Work itself can be a touchy subject, especially for those who are out of work, still trying to weather the ups and downs of a post-pandemic world and widespread downsizing and unemployment. Work, specifically a career or job, can still be an issue for those retired who have stepped away from careers or steady employment within a community. And work can be a catch-all phrase for whatever we have to do to get by, even what is mindless or boring or stressful, sometimes done with overbearing and demanding bosses looking over our shoulders, and less than cooperative and supportive coworkers or antagonistic customers. But that's our job. No matter what category describes your current state of employment, I'm inviting us to focus on that spiritual component of work. And not just the job or your job, but the work of making a life, of being in relationships, of growing and deepening, the kind of work where we center ourselves to whatever task is before us. Not just to get it all done, but in the midst of the jumble and the stress, to find ourselves, our meaning lies beyond the job that is right at hand. Now, there is this continuing call for all of us to find some kind of work-life balance, especially in the remote work in the realm of Zoom that continues, where the edges are blurred and distinctions can be worn off between what is work and what is not. Poet and essayist David White, in a book of essays called Consolation, the Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words, he notes this about work. Work-life balance has become a phrase that often becomes a lash with which we punish ourselves. Work-life balance is a lash with which we punish ourselves. People can find it hard. I don't know if it's ever happened to you. I know it's happened to me, to find it hard to balance the demands of work, whatever that is, with family, or to balance family with self, or balance self with other demands or desires. And if we can't create that mythical balance, we have somehow failed. We're trying and striving for happiness or contentment, envisioning some other more fulfilling existence beyond our jobs. So we end up splitting ourselves in 2 or 3 distinct selves or components, pitting one part against the other. So it's no wonder we find ourselves exhausted. And then we chide ourselves. We shouldn't be so stressed or worn out. It's worse for so many other people. But maybe it's not just a question of balance, trying to even out all the aspects of our lives. White suggests that we're exhausted because we cannot thrive with so much internal conflict, trying to hold these divisions or competing parts of our lives and knit them together, and sometimes they just don't fit. We want our lives to be a more seamless whole. What we really want is to have a life where all those various aspects and requirements are integrated in some meaningful way, a more holistically oriented life. And in truth, that isn't as complicated as it sounds. This longing for integration has always been a part of the human experience. But attempting to create some kind of balance where the scales tip neither one way or the other between working hard and some daily ease and contentment, that may be a fool's errand. When we strive for that so-called balance, we are really on a quest for more meaning in our lives. Marge Piercy, I think, was getting at the same thing. We are always on the hunt for an integrated life of meaning and purpose, a life where our efforts and exertions are grounded in something more than the paycheck or checking off that thing on our list of things to do. We want a life where our efforts and exertions are grounded in compassion and love, and they result in something meaningful, something truly of use. We think of work or labor as a means to an end, a job we have to do to earn a living or to provide for our simple survival. But embedded in those phrases is the essence of what we are about. Making ends meet actually as the integration of our whole selves, adapting to change, evolving. Whatever we have to do to make a living, we can find ourselves still craving meaningful existence and striving to craft that. We're striving. We're always striving, trying to make our way in the world. Our personal, sometimes hidden, unique, our deep foundational self may feel that it's in opposition to all that striving, that there is an equally deep longing for some far-off horizon, a dream or a desire, something more that we think we need, something more than what we have at hand. And we sometimes have trouble articulating or describing what that is, what we yearn for. Yet, it's likely something separate and apart from our work, and something we feel we should have but don't. To counter this struggle, White suggests we should not try so hard. Not try so hard to slice and dice our lives into what is work and not work, and then strike some kind of balance between all of that. We might as well let go of that effort, because it will never come out even, and we'll always feel frustrated, and that we've failed yet again at achieving that elusive balance. White suggests that we refocus and embrace work and life all at once, so we don't separate ourselves out from those other things we have to do. That means we are comfortable with ourselves, that we are in a place where we fully embrace the possibilities of success and failure. We engage both the mystery of the present and the longed-for future that work might lead us to. We need to keep our imagination and creativity alive to do that, alive to the possibilities present in that far-off horizon or dream, and at the same time tend to the practicalities at hand, for they are in service of that dream. Tend to the here and now. It's almost like the dream of the well-crafted bowl and the reality of the likely failure at the wheel existing in the same moment. Forget about that balance and adopt a more holistic outlook, where work isn't something apart from us over there somewhere, but it's part of the whole journey and the process of living. Profit, recognition, wealth, all beautiful byproducts we embrace as success are not the whole story. Our work, the work of the world, is about the whole process, this falling down and getting up, this failure and error, this endeavor and achievement, of frustration and fulfillment. It is being human. Work, White says, is the inside made into the outside, bringing our whole selves into whatever we do and letting ourselves be vulnerable and visible. Like the potter, we keep at it until it seems right, until there is a fitting together of beauty, craft, comfort, and utility. We keep throwing those pots, slapping clay on the wheel, making something of our lives that may or may not pan out. But we keep trying, and we adapt, we change. We meet the great moments of transformation. We cross thresholds and move forward. We experience rejection and acceptance, appreciation and criticism. To work and to live, we must go through the laborious and sometimes painful work of evolving and changing through all of that. White suggests that with the right work, the right relationship to that work, and the recognized mystery of what is continually being revealed to us through our endeavors, we find a home in the world. With the right work and the right relationship to that work, we find a home in the world. As someone who retired from a full-time profession that for so many years shaped my identity, filled my daily hours and yearly calendars, work that made home and hearth and travel and entertainment and cultural enrichments possible, my work clearly was then and is still to some degree who I am. But now I must consider how this work shaped me, formed and informed my way of seeing and being in the world, with those emptier places on the calendar and less of a drive to meet a schedule or demands of things that have to be done. What is left when it stops, when the job goes away? So not worrying about that work-life balance serves me well if I see my job simply part of my work in the world, more willing or able to give myself over to it. White suggests we expand this view of work, that we recognize in our work we are giving a gift. We give a gift not only through what we make or do, but in the way we feel as we do. We give a gift not only by what we produce, by what we make or do, but in the way we feel as we do, and in the way others witness us in our feeling and doing, giving to them as they give to us. Then our work is a gift that is twice given, physically in the present and imaginatively in the future. It holds within it a promise, a possibility, a work and an identity that holds both together, not only for an end, but for every step that shapes the onward way, not just in the result, but holds both together the work, the identity, the self, and others that shapes our onward way. My work then and now is to keep that conversation alive. Through this work, we human beings earn for ourselves and our families the possibility of making a difficult world habitable. As I say these words, I think too of privilege, for it is a privilege and may seem like a luxury to some to contemplate work in this way. There are those who struggle, who would love to have the opportunity to wax poetic about work and earning a living and making a life. And there are those who make arduous journeys for that elusive work in the spirit of freedom and possibility, that dream on a far-off horizon. And there are those left behind, and those trapped in lands where wars are waged years on end, whose dreams are dying. What is all this balancing act to them? Perhaps nothing in this moment. Yet we cannot abandon our own potential. As overwhelmed as we may feel at times, we cannot give up on ourselves if we are to ever be part of the repair of the world, the tikkun olam, to meet the world's deep hunger. We cannot afford to stop having this internal and external dialogue about work, because we could lose our bearings and get bogged down, and then we'll give up. And we can't. If we give up on this life of work and joy and relationships and meaning, we will be unable to meet the needed effort to build toward that far horizon of a world of peace, a world that is more fair and just and abundant. This work is, as White puts it, a constant conversation. It is the back and forth between what I think is me and what I think is not me. It is the edge of what the world needs of me and what I need of the world. I'm going to read that one again. This work is a constant conversation, the back and forth between what I think is me and what I think is not me, the edge between what the world needs of me and what I need of this world.